Chasing Giants with Don Higgins and Terry Peer. Brought to you by Osseo Camo, nature's most lethal camouflage. Follow along as Don and Terry discuss the techniques, strategies, and dedication needed to harvest one of God's most amazing creations, world-class whitetails.
Welcome, everyone, to the Chasing Giants podcast, episode 283, brought to you by Osseo Gear. I got Don Higgins. How's it going, buddy?
I'm good. How you, Terry?
I'm well. It's been a crazy week. Last week we recorded right after I got back from vacation, and I've spent the week digging out after being gone on a cruise ship for a week. So this last week has been a lot of very, very long hours digging out. You know how that is after being gone.
Yeah, I thought after the dealer event that we had there at the end of June that the rest of my summer and fall was free, and then every week it seems like I put something on the calendar every day. So here I am sitting here thinking next week I don't have much going on, but I guarantee you by the end of the week I will have had something just about every day.
Well, has the heat wave hit you all this week to where it was too hot to pretty much do anything outside? I know it's been that way here.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know, it was in the 90s, but the humidity, I mean, we had 2.7 inches of rain last weekend, so that just, brought the humidity, and then it gets up in the 90s, so it was just about unbearable outside this week.
I tell you what, though, it's made the corn go quick, though. We got that rain right as my corn was tasseling and got this heat right after. And I walked out in the food plot yesterday, and the ears have filled out. I mean, my Nutri-Crave corn, it's going to be the best crop of corn I've ever had.
Yeah, me too. We got, right when mine was tasseling that weekend, we got 2.2 inches of rain. And then the next weekend we got 2.7. And we've got the heat and humidity to go with it. I walk out my window every day and I tell my wife, look at that corn crop. It's the plot, Nutri-Crave plot in the backyard, and I'm telling you what, it looks absolutely fantastic.
I'm going to guess that I have ears that are 14 inches long. I mean, I've never had ears, and I mean, they're filling out beautiful. Of course, we got some test corn that we're looking at this year, but I went out in the soybeans. I got soybeans up over knee high, some of them, pushing thigh high. So everything, man, it's been a few years since I've had a really good spring food plot year, and this year I got really good spring plots.
We do here as well, and I've just filmed a video this week for Chasing Giants TV, and it hasn't come out yet. People will see it soon. But I was in some of that test corn, and I don't know about yours, but some of that stuff is literally the stalks are like 10 feet tall, and the ears were right here at my head level.
Yep.
And those deer are going to have to stand up on their hind legs to eat those ears, which I think is fine because I'd like for it to be a little harder for them to eat because I run out. And if it's a challenge for them, I think it lasts a little longer. And I've got plans to add some more acreage of corn. Just because I need it, because I run out. That's the first thing I run out of every year is the corn. But I couldn't believe how tall them stalks were on some of that test corn and how high the ears were off the ground. I mean,
and they're as big around as baseball bats. I mean, it's some crazy looking stuff. I mean, I'm almost tempted to grind it for silage, to be honest with you, because there's a lot of material there.
It would be great silage corn. I'm really anxious to see the analysis, how it compares to the Nutri-Crave. And the Nutri-Crave is fairly tall corn as well. We actually had a little bit of seed left from our original Nutri-Crave, which was 108, 109-day corn. And then, we went to the 112 and then 100-day. Well, I had some of that original seed. Dwayne found some for me, just a little bit. So in my planter, I planted 2 rows of each. So then when I come back and turn the planter around, I got 4 rows. So throughout the one plot, I've got the 2 different Nutri-Crave maturities. But then I got 2 separate plots with these 2 test corns. And there's going to be a lot of corn out there.
Yeah. I believe your video that you just mentioned airs on Monday. If not, it's already been uploaded and scheduled. If it's not Monday, it's Tuesday of this week on the Chasing Giants YouTube channel. So there's usually between 3 or 4 videos a week posted on there. So make sure you check that out. I tell you what, you mentioned it in that video because I watched it, while it was uploading. You got the same results with your pre-emergent reservoir this year than I did. I don't have any, hardly. I mean, you can find occasionally a patch of grass that grew up, but for a non-GMO corn that was never cultivated, that was never sprayed post-emergent, there is hardly any weeds out in the middle of this thing.
And that's what I've been doing for a number of years with my corn. That the day I plant, I put that pre-emergent down on right on top of the bare dirt, and I never touch that plot again ever. Not until I come back and mow it. And there's some things like that we're doing that you and I have talked about a little bit. We're going to have an event this winter for land managers. Anybody that's out there planting food plots for people, doing other land management work, TSI work, whatever. We're going to have an event for those land managers. It's going to be a one-day class. It's going to be free, but you have to be a real-world dealer to attend. And we're going to go through, amongst other things, but one of the things we're going to do is go through the real-world products, and we're going to detail how to get the best results, because we want these guys that are out planting our products for people to get the best results for their customers.
Right.
It's good for everybody. It's good for the customer. It's good for the guy that's putting the plot in. He doesn't have to deal with complaints. And we were just talking about it today. We're going to have a handbook that they're going to take home. It's going to have every product listed, the herbicides, the proper planting procedure, and free class, going to have lunch. It's probably going to be part of a dealer event next winter. So one day of the dealer event will be this class. And so we just encourage anyone, if you're not a real world dealer now and you want to attend that class, there's you can sign up, now to get fall seed, or sign up next winter to get your spring stuff for next year and your mineral and everything else. But it's going to be unlike anything anyone else has done.
Well, and think of it this way. If you're installing food plots as a side business or a side hustle and you're not a dealer, you're missing an opportunity, because you can for the entrepreneurs out there, it's diversify your revenue streams, right? You can sell the product and install it and double dip a little bit on it. So again, this is we are building a library of resources, and we're going to bring in other people, not just us, to talk about everything from TSI safety and tree identifications. We're going to go down the entire list of stuff that you're doing, even putting up diversion fence. Everything that you might get from a land manager coming to you that will help make you successful. So it's going to be I think it's going to be a really, really cool class that, like you said, nobody's ever done before.
Yeah, and we're hoping to get Dr. Aaron Gaines in, who developed our Expect Healthy Deer technology. And folks, there is some real science behind that stuff. It wasn't just dreamed up in somebody's garage or feed mill and a bunch of stuff thrown together. And Aaron has got a very eye-opening presentation that I've seen him give before on this, and we're going to try to get him there at this event to share the details. So why should your clients be feeding Maximizer Mineral or the Maximizer Complete Feed instead of other brands? Well, you're going to learn the science behind it from the PhD, the nutritionist who developed it, not from Terry and I, or just laymen trying to relay the information in layman's terms. And Aaron's got a fantastic presentation for that.
Yep. So anyway, got sidetracked there a little bit, but yeah, our weed control, that Resicor just absolutely worked phenomenal this year. Yeah, I sprayed alfalfa today. I had, that if you've watched Chasing Giants TV episode a little bit, where I ran out of seed in I had the drill choked down all the way, but I don't have a small seed box, so I planted it too thick. And I went and got some cheap buffalo at the local farm store that didn't germinate at all, planted the same day. I had a lot of weeds, and I kept mowing them so they didn't get go to seed, but today I went in with some 2,4-D B and some clethodim and sprayed that. So I got alfalfa sprayed today. But yeah, just even my sunflowers. I planted a lot of sunflowers this year. Even the sunflowers look great. So I can't complain one bit. We've been really blessed with a good growing year.
Yeah, my grain sorghum has got heads on it, seed heads already. My soybeans are between my knee and my waist, and I know they'll get at least another foot to 18 inches taller than what they are right now. They do a lot of growing late where corn, finishes once it's got that ear started. Soybeans will keep right on growing, especially those real world soybeans who are a little longer maturity. They'll be growing into September.
Yep. All right, well, let's take a quick break. And remember, Osseo has a preseason sale going on right now. It's right at the tail end of it for those of you listening to the podcast early in the week. But 25% off, I believe, on all items, and there's no coupon code. So just click it. It'll apply it in your cart. Yeah, don't miss this opportunity to save a lot of money. This is one of the bigger discount codes that they give any time of the year, and you can pre-order their new camo pattern, all the new stuff, base layers, boots, all of that kind of stuff is on the website. So we'll be right back after this message from our friends at Osseo.
Osseo Gear introduces a premium line of bow hunting gear that is unmatched, pairing nature's finest camouflage with the best technological innovations. Osseo Gear brings whitetail bow hunters the gear they need to be the best at their craft. The unique camouflage mimics the intricate feather pattern of North America's greatest predatory creatures. Designed for invisibility, built for comfort, and engineered for function. Visit OsseoGear.com. That's ASIO Gear.com to start shopping. Osseo Gear. Prepare to be invisible.
Well, Don, earlier in the week, I did make a drive up into Indiana to visit with our friends at Grub Implement. And I tell you what, hearing the story, his wife is actually the third generation of that implement dealership. Did you know that?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool to see a implement dealership. I ended up buying a zero-turn mower. I got the biggest overkill zero-turn mower that you could ever imagine for a yard. But the reason I wanted it, I even got the Tweels. Have you seen the run flat, no flat tires that they put on the back of it that smash out and get? So I even got that on it. And the reason I did is you can set, this one goes up to 5.5 inches of cut height with the deck all the way up. So I'm actually going to use it like you use your little tractor with your finish mower to go in my clover plots and get closer to those fruit trees that I have instead of my big mower. So I wanted those run flat tires so I didn't, if I ran over a locust bush or something like that, I didn't pop a hole in it. But while I was there, I also picked up a Kubota U35 excavator that we got some really cool projects going for it. I was on the excavator for about 2 hours today and basically got the start of a small dam for a water hole. I found a place on the farm that basically runoff from 3 different directions is going to feed down into a shallow, I'm going to say shallow, but it'll probably be about 4 feet deep. I have no water on my farm and never have to fill it. It's right next to one of my orchards that I put in, so really excited to get it there. I'm not very good on an excavator yet. I've had about 4 hours on one, and it makes me appreciate what our buddy Austin Razor can do on that thing. It's just like an extension of his hand picking up a pop can and drinking out of it. It's amazing.
Yeah, I've rented mini hoe several times, and anymore when I do it, actually I just had one this week, and I wait until my son-in-law Corey's around to run it because he can do more in 30 minutes than I can do in 3 hours because of all the different levers and controls. And if you're not used to it, I mean, it takes some getting used to. You're just better off getting somebody that does it.
I mean, I can drive a skid loader above average. I can grade, I can No problem. But then, man, them joysticks, and especially on a smaller hoe where you don't have that real big footprint and you get up high and the thing starts shaking all around, and I'm just not very smooth with it yet. But I'm going to get some more practice with it. We got a really special project that we're working on to prepare for the Shipshewana show that we can't really talk about just yet, but we're going to have a special session in Shipshewana at the Midwest Sportsman's Classic this year about a habitat project that we've both kind of kept a little bit quiet that's strategic for both of our farms for deer hunting. And that will be able to be seen and heard at the Midwest Sportsman's Classic in February. So we got those things cooking. I did have a little accident. I tried to do a quick dismount out of the excavator and slipped and had one leg tied up inside the cab and one leg trying to get to the ground and me halfway in between. And man, I'm sore today. I won't lie. I'm really worried that my knee has got a little bit of damage in it because it's swelled up about the size of a volleyball. So don't make a quick dismount out of an excavator, folks. It will come back and bite you.
I hope you didn't rip those Separtech underwear whenever you stretched out like that.
No, I'm worried about that cadaver ACL that I had replaced in 2020. When you remember,
Yeah.
I'm worried about that's what I ripped. But so far I think it'll be all right. It's just a little swollen and sore. But yeah, I had to. You know that just that time where you have the belly pain hitting and you're not quite sure whether it's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I tried to do a quick disc mount to make sure it didn't fill my britches, and yeah.
Well,
we'll leave the details out of it.
Yeah, too much information.
Yeah. All right. What else? What else you got? Are you supposed to get cool weather and some rain this week, or what do you got going on? I want to talk a little bit before the questions. I've already started seeing it's let's see, it's July 25th. This show's going to air on July 27th. I've already seen people taking pictures of planting fall food plots. We deal with this every year with people planting way too early.
Mm-hmm.
What is your time frame to spray and prepare your ground for your fall food plots?
Well, the rule of thumb is you want to plant those fall plots be 45 to 60 days ahead of the first expected frost. And so for much of us, along Interstate 70 is kind of a general rule I follow. You're looking at September 1st. So, and for every 100 miles you go north, you move that up a week. So if you're 200 miles north of 70, say up on the Wisconsin border, and that's probably getting close to 200 miles, then you're going to be wanting to plant yours mid-August. And you can even go, to the 1st of August, you get up into Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, some of those areas, probably upper New York as well. But for most of us, we're going to be planting mid-August to 1st of September. And even that first week of September, second week of September is not bad. Just depends on the fall you have. But, you're still a good 45 days from the typical first frost. And you don't want to, you want to keep your weeds and vegetation under control, but you also don't want to spray too soon. And it depends on how you're going to plant. If you're going to work the soil, well, you can have some little weeds out there. If you're going to till it or disc it or whatever, you can have some small weeds out there and get them worked up and kill them, and it's not a big issue. But if you're using a no-till drill, that becomes a whole different ball game. And I try to spray those fall plots just shortly before, like a week or so before I'm going to come in and no-till with the G-Series drill, and it works perfect that way. And you can still get a little bit of weed competition, but most of those weeds are going to get killed with the first frost. So yeah, you get some weed growth coming on. Don't sweat it too much because the first frost is going to knock most of that out, and you'll end up with still a good plot. But yeah, we're way early. What is it here? The 25th of July as we record this, and already seeing people plant those plots. And yeah, you're going to get a nice, beautiful plot, especially with the rain we've had this year, the ground moisture we've got. We got more rain in the forecast. you're going to get a beautiful plot. The problem is, once those plants in your plot, no matter what mix you're using, once they become too mature, they lose their palatability. The deer like those young, tender plants. They don't want oats or rye or whatever it is in your mix to be 2 feet tall because it loses a lot of its palatability. And that's the issue with planting too soon.
Yeah, basically the plant goes to seed, and its goal is not to be nutrient rich. Its goal is to reproduce and drop seed down. So you basically have that happen before your hunting season. And even though you look good, I mean, the folks here in Kentucky, I get it. You know, season opens the first week of September. They want that green carpet, to hunt over in September. I get it, but man, you're really cutting yourself short late season if you do it. I will mention, we've talked about this over the years. One of the best ways to plan a fall food plot that will get extra attraction out of the gate for you early season hunters is find some leftover soybeans from earlier in the year that a farmer has. They don't have to be Roundup ready. They don't have, because they're going to die the first frost anyway. But those young soybean plants, so if you mix, Dwayne Hopkins tells us, mix anywhere from 15 to 20 pounds an acre in your fall blend. You can put them in thick. But those young soybean plants, if you're looking to draw deer into that food plot and take the browse pressure off of, say, your winter peas or other things that are in your mix, find some of those leftover soybeans that a local farmer or ag store. Green Prairie Seed has some right now. If you're interested in that, you can call the office. But, it doesn't matter what kind they are. You're not going to spray them with a post-emergent herbicide anyway. But mixing that 15 pounds per acre in your Deadly Dozen, your Harvest Salad, Dixie Dozen, anything like that, massive attraction for early season hunters.
It definitely will get the deer hitting your plot early. Take pressure
Yep.
off of some of your other plots or plants within your plots.
Yep. All right, well, Don, I want to transition to our 360 Hunting Blinds Higgins hot seat because I want to talk about this section, and I know you kind of don't like these because you don't get to prepare for them, but we're in about a month into trail camera season, and where you've gotten trail cameras out. Let's talk a little bit about your trail cameras, and in the middle of this conversation, think back to some of those giant bucks that you've already killed, and when you got the first velvet picture of what they were that year, whether it's Smokey, Mel, Trump, whatever it was, think about the excitement and share that with us of one of those giants that you were tracking from year to year to year, and you got that first velvet picture, because a lot of our guys are out there finding their target buck for the year. Where do you stand this year with all of your cameras being deployed? And tell a past story about that excitement that you had with one specific buck, the first picture you got, where you said, whoa.
Well, that's going to be an easy question to answer about the buck, and that would be Smokey, because after I shot my first 200 in 2004, I'd been trying to shoot a second one for 13 years. And I mean, I was covering territory. I was doing anything possible to try to find another 200. And finally, 13 years later in 2017, and I knew the buck very well. He was on my farm, I don't know, since he was 2 years old at least, because I got pictures back to 2 years old. But the previous fall, he was scored 186, and I found the sheds, measured him, and came up with 186. And I'd passed him, I think it was 5 times that fall on video. He's the biggest buck I'd ever passed at that point, and ended up scoring 186. And I just thought that, man, if he had a G4 on one side each year, and it would go from one side to the other. And I thought, man, if he could ever put a G4 on both sides, maybe add a little bit of tine length, just a little bit of mass, he'd be right there at 200. And I'm going to share with you, Terry, I'm going to send you a video so you can put it on the screen. The first video I've got of Smokey that summer. And it's at night, but he comes around a pine tree and goes right towards the camera. And when I got that, it was like I didn't sleep for about a week because I knew that my second 200 was there, and I thought my chances were very, very good of killing him. He was just a different kind of buck. He was a homebody buck that did not leave the farm. He's probably about the only buck that I can recall in all the years I've been managing this farm that stayed here all year round, even in the summer. And I mean, very, very homebody. Probably the most homebody buck I've ever had on this farm. And that made me feel very confident when I passed him, as a 5-year-old, and he scored 186. It made me very confident that the odds of him living and surviving was very good. And the odds of me killing him was going to be very good because he was just here every day. It wasn't like, I'm here hunting and he's a mile away. He just stayed home. And, boy, when I got that first, and I had the camera set on video mode of all things, and I don't do that a lot, but I did in this particular case. And when I got that, it was like, all right, it's game on. I've waited 13 years for this moment, and it's finally at hand. But this summer, to be honest, has been kind of disappointing. Had a number of bucks that I was keeping tabs on. One of them, I'm afraid, died. He's the buck that you and I seen while we was hunting together last fall. And if you remember back on the west fence, and he came by us that evening, got great video footage. Well, later in the fall, he hurt his foot, and he was limping around here really bad. And last winter, when the weather got bad and I had all the deer hitting my food plots and had cameras on them plots, I was rarely getting his picture. He just was not hanging with the other deer, and I don't know if it was a social stress, because I know from having a captive deer, if you get a buck hurt, especially if he's an older dominant buck, the younger bucks see their opening and they're going to just hammer him. And I don't know if that caused him to stay away from the prime food sources or what. Now, he did end up shedding one of his antlers in my backyard. We got a row of pine trees here along the one side of my yard, and found one of his sheds under those pine trees last winter. But so I'm pretty sure he did not survive, because I cannot find him for anything. And I found just about every other buck that I'm looking for, especially the older ones. There were some younger bucks, some 2- and 3-year-olds that I haven't got the first pictures of yet, but they're probably on my cameras on the cards. I just haven't checked the cameras yet. So there's another buck, what I would call my number one buck. He put on some inches, but a few, not near as many as I was hoping. There is a buck, though, that he was 3 last year and he's 4 this year, and he put on a bunch of inches. Now, he's not 200, and I'm not going to shoot him as a 4-year-old, so he's looking really good. In fact, my good friend Tim Heath I shared pictures with him, and he says, I like this buck better than your number one buck. He says, I think this buck's got more potential, and he could be right. Another buck that was on my watch list for a potential shooter this year. He's 5 this year, was 4 last year. I had found both of his sheds last winter. Probably would have scored high 160s, low 170s. That buck, I've got his picture several times, and he's put on a few inches, but not many. I don't think he's not going to hit 180. It'll be in the mid to upper 170s, I would guess. There's a couple other bucks that I've just not got. Well, one of them, he's not even on my farm. He's miles away. I thought he had potential to be a shooter. I got a picture of a buck just yesterday on a cell cam sent to me that I think could be him, and I'm not 100% sure. If it is him, he's lost like 20 or 30 inches.
Wow.
But he's an older buck, and I'm only about 50-50 sure it's him, to be honest. I mean, there's a lot of similar characteristics, but there's also some things that just don't match up, and if it's him, he went way downhill. Now, he looks healthy as can be, so a good chance it may not be him too. So like I said, I'm about 50-50 on that one, but I've got a lot of cameras out there that I have not checked for the first time. I mean, I've got 40 some cameras out right now with a few more I need to get out. And most of them have not been checked the first time. I had a friend here recently tell me about a giant buck. He called it a giant that he's seen from the road at like 20 yards here recently, and it's near a place where I've got permission to hunt, and I've got a couple cameras there actually, so I may have that buck on camera. But to be honest, my enthusiasm that I had the 1st of July has waned just a little bit. I mean, I'm still excited, and I'll figure out what I'm going to do, and I won't be heartbroken no matter if every buck went backwards. It's still a fall spent in a tree stand is a whole lot better than a fall spent at work. So I'll be out there, and it's part of it. When you chase the giants, there's a lot of seasons where you don't have much to chase. And I don't care how much land you got. I mean, you could have thousands of acres, and if you're hunting those upper end bucks, there's not that many of them. So I'd say so far I'm slightly disappointed.
Well, so far I do not have a shooter on my place that I'm interested in. Got a couple that's older, but not going to be what I want. This sounds really bad, but I'm convinced I have some neighbors that are feeding or baiting. The geniuses that are running the DNR in Kentucky, we're not supposed to put any feed back out for supplemental feeding until the 1st of August. So I have a very, very good suspicion that my neighbors are feeding. So yeah, we'll see. Still got a lot of time, and I'm more worried about what happens here closer to when the season and when the bachelor group split up anyway. The farm is set up quite a bit different that I'm not. Remember how back in the day, my farm, I was pretty much relying on that first couple weeks of September, and then it was a ghost the rest of the time. As we've developed my farm over, I've wanted it to be more, to have more food and bedding to keep deer there during hunting season versus just have a 2-week window where I can hunt. So we'll see. It's a work in progress. Do have a couple decent ones in Illinois that I'm excited about. But yeah, we got cameras out soaking. We'll have to pull them and see where we are. But I really hope for your sake and all of our listeners, you get another Smokey moment where that feeling when he came around that corner. I know the video you're talking about, and it's pretty cool. It's been used a lot of places over the years.
Yep.
But I think Whitetail Cribs even used that as their opening or closing of the Whitetail Crib show. So.
Yeah, I got that picture on an Exodus camera back when Exodus was in business. Well, it was 2017, and they've used that video, or did while they were in business. They used it a lot in different promos and advertising. Yep. So we'll share it here, and everybody can have another look.
All right, well, we're going to transition to our Midwest Land Group listener-submitted questions. Make sure you're following them on social media, folks. They have moved into Kentucky and are coming east. They have job openings available and obviously opportunities for not only people to work there, but also to represent you as your realtor. So make sure you're checking them out. We'll be right back.
Don't risk your most valuable asset with a part-time agent. Most real estate agents are part-time, working another job, trying to scratch together a few extra bucks in real estate as a side gig. Their inexperience will cost you thousands at closing. Not at Midwest Land Group. They only hire full-time professionals. Their agents are passionate about the outdoors, highly trained, and committed to maximizing the value of your land. If you're interested in selling your land, don't risk it with a part-time agent. Visit MidwestLandGroup.com.
All right, our first question comes from Evan Coleman from Richmond, Kentucky. It says, Don, I want to let you know I've listened to your podcast for several years and thank you greatly for being a total wealth of information. Your techniques have taught me many things the last few years, but I thought your conversation in episode 280 about Bobby Worthington and how there are certain ways to kill mature whitetails in different regions was the best piece of advice to most hunters in today's world. I hunt in the thick mountains of eastern Kentucky, and Bobby is right. It all depends on the rut funnel and pinch points. Bedding areas change on several different factors, during the season. And for me, it's all about how I position myself on those cold fronts from late October through mid-November. My question for you is, how can the typical whitetail hunter still keep a similar approach when considering all terrain features and be successful? Do you think there's one or two factors that triumph all? Wind, access, fronts, bedding, etc.? I'm curious to know your approach if you were given 72 hours to kill a mature buck in the heart of the mountains with no visible fields or food plots, just steep mountains and oak trees. Think of Daniel Boone National Forest. Well, Evan, if I was given 72 hours, there's no doubt what I'd do. I'd find those funnels, and you're looking for ridge saddles as one of the best, or where a ravine comes up, and the head of that ravine at the top of the ridge will funnel them deer around the end of that. But no doubt that I'd be hunting funnels. It seems to be that the phrase of the day in the hunting industry is rut funnels, and I'm not sure where that came from. I think it might have came from Bobby or Joe Miles or the combination. It's a funnel. It's a funnel they hunt during the rut. It's a funnel that when bucks are covering a lot of territory, it's going to concentrate their movement in a small narrow travel corridor. That's exactly what I'd be doing, is hunting those funnels. Call them a rut funnel, just call them a funnel, whatever. We just called them funnels for a number of years until it seems like here in the last year or so, everybody wanted to throw the word rut in front of it. But in terms of, a couple of the factors that don't change from one region to another, without a doubt, a mature buck's playing the wind. You got to play the wind too. I mean, he's not walking through the woods using his eyes to find does or to tell him of danger. He maybe to a small degree, and I'm talking like 10%, 90% is going to be his nose. And I'll even change that. I'll say 90% is his nose, 5% is his eyes, and 5% is his ears. If he sees or hears something, yeah, he's going to react to it. But his nose is his survival mechanism, number one. So he's going to be using his nose, and you're going to have to factor that in no matter where you're standing or where your stand is, because I just don't think that most people give a mature buck enough credit for how he uses his nose. And you're always going to have to play the wind. Access is huge as well. If you blow out all the deer in 100 acres on the way to your stand, well, you've just done yourself a huge disservice, and you probably set yourself up for failure before you ever climb into your stand. And that goes for everywhere. I think it happens in farm country a lot. A lot of hunters ruin their chances of success before they ever get to their tree, and by their access route to that. And I know, when we was talking with Bobby when he was here a few weeks ago, Terry, he mentioned that he knows where he wants to be, and he's got to get there. So, but still, you can pick the best route to get there, the route where you're least likely to bump deer, you're least likely to be leaving ground scent where a deer can hit it before it comes past your stand. Access and play in the wind, those are just huge factors everywhere you hunt whitetails, as are funnels, even in farm country. When us consultants are out there setting up a property, we are trying to narrow down travel corridors. We're trying to push those deer to the trees where we have things at our advantage. And I don't think that changes anywhere as well. So there's three different factors right there that I think every whitetail hunter needs to pay attention to, no matter where he's at.
And given 72 hours, that time of year where you're hunting those rut funnels, a lot of it comes down to how many hours you're in that stand. I mean, out of the 72 hours to hunt, you probably need to be in the stand 40 of it. I mean, it's you got to pay the dues with time during that time of year. It's not a matter of hunting till 10 o'clock and going in, taking a nap, and coming back at 3. There's a lot of action that could happen on the downwind side of a bedding area or in these rut funnels in the middle of the day.
We hear guys talk about you can't kill them on the couch. And I've blasted that approach or that mindset many times on social media, on other podcasts, whatever. but that is a situation where time in the woods is on your side. The longer you sit there, eventually you're going to see a shooter buck. Maybe you have to sit there for 5 years, but if you sit there, if you're at home on the couch on the wrong day, you are going to miss him. So in a region like that, I think that saying has some credence.
But where you've been critical of that saying has been people hunting the wrong conditions and saying, I'm going out there anyway because even though it's a bad wind because you can't kill them on the couch. That's where you were critical of that mindset. It wasn't putting your time in for the right situation during the rut. You never criticized that.
No, and also, the property you're on. I mean, and the time of season. So I guarantee you, Bobby's not out there in his rut funnels in September and October, early October, when all the trees are green. He's not climbing in there and educating the deer. Here's where there's a man sitting a lot of times. No, he's waiting until the time's right. He's a master woodsman, and he knows where to be and when to be there. And that, I admitted in that podcast that was referenced by the guy asking this question, that different terrain requires a different set of rules, and Bobby's doing things the best way that could possibly be done in his area. Now, I will say this though, I think if you owned a big timbered, rough, mountainous tract, I think as a landowner, I do think you could do some things to really up your odds. And you could create some food sources, even if they're just mass producing trees, apple trees, persimmons, pears, whatever. Do some clearings and get those trees started. You could also do some clear cuts and get that second growth. These guys are saying that these bucks bed everywhere. Yeah, they do. They don't have the same bed every day. They don't have the same bed every day in farm country either. But you could really encourage some bedding in a more isolated area. Instead of having that buck bedding on 500 acres somewhere, give him a 10-acre, really, really thick, nasty clear cut that's thicker than anything he's got anywhere in his range. And I think you'd be able to get a buck bedding there no matter what the terrain is. So I do think there's some habitat projects that can be done in that type of situation to really increase your odds.
Yep. Speaking of the Daniel Boone National Forest, you know what happened the last time I was on the Daniel Boone National Forest?
Code Brown?
No, it was my freshman year of college, and we went hiking up. I was just getting into, I think I'd only killed maybe 2 deer by that point with my bow, but we were going back in to find a place to hunt during the week when I was at college, and we went way back in, parked in our public parking spot, and we're going back in scouting when we first got back to school, or got to school. It was my freshman year, so we had just gotten down there, and we came across up on this spine, and Daniel Boone National Forest is huge, and we walked up on somebody who had a pot farm out on public land and had cultivated rows of marijuana. I mean, we were back in the middle of nowhere, and the only thing I could think of is how are we getting out of here without stepping in a booby trap or getting shot, one of the two. And that was my last time on the Daniel Boone National Forest. So it was a very, of course, there was no Onyx back then. It was very interesting trying to tell the police officer what we found and where it was when we didn't even know really where we were and anything. Would have been a whole lot better if we had an Onyx back then. We could have pinned it and sent it to him.
Well, you weren't hanging a stand. The deer may have been browsing on that stuff. That might make a great food plot.
You never know. Be some maybe the deer did not have any anxiety in that part of the country. I don't know.
All right, the next question comes from Liam Gripe from Lockwood, Missouri. It says, I'm 15 years old. I live in southwest Missouri, and I am fortunate enough to be born into an amazing family that has introduced me to the sport of bow hunting and let me hunt and manage roughly 70 acres. I came here to ask you guys what the most important things are for holding mature whitetails is and what the keys are to making that buck comfortable in daylight on my property from September to January. I am truly thankful for what you guys do for the hunting community, and I greatly appreciate you guys taking the time to read this. Well, Liam, we appreciate you listening. Hopefully,
it's a well-spoken 15-year-old right there.
Amen. Mom and Dad ought to be proud of that young man. But so what can you do on your property? Well, you probably heard us talk about this before, but freedom of human intrusion is absolutely huge. That's a mature buck's number one desire, even above a hot doe. He wants to never encounter a human, especially in his bedroom. So you need to take that 70 acres, and a major part of that 70 acres needs to become a sanctuary that is thick cover. I don't know what's on your 70 acres right now, so it's hard for me to give you any solid advice. But it needs to be some form of thick cover that you stay out of, and everybody else stays out of as well. If you get those deer bedded on your property, that's a big step in the right direction. And for one thing, he's only going to bed there if he feels comfortable and safe there. And that's going to encourage him to be on his feet in daylight. And you're going to have to hunt the edge of that sanctuary with your wind always blowing out. And it's going to take some real discipline, especially when you start getting trail camera pictures of a giant, or you start seeing giant rubs and sign of a big buck. You're going to want to be, you're really going to want to go put your stand in the heart of all that thick cover to kill that deer. But I caution you against that. You get too aggressive, you could run that buck off. But you got to get him bedded there. I mean, I'm a guy that owns a food plot seed company, and I'm going to tell you that the number one thing that you need to be doing on any property is getting those deer, those mature bucks, bedded on that property. You use the food to create a travel pattern, but you got to start by getting them deer bedded on your property. And so that's what you need to focus on, is creating good bedding cover, and then giving it complete freedom of human intrusion, and let those bucks bed there without being disturbed.
All right. Good question, young man. Hope you enjoy your free t-shirt you're going to get.
Next question comes from Joey Kessinger from Rushville, Illinois. Says, Don, you have talked in the past about how the hot early summer helps with antler growth. With the heat index this week of 113 to 116 in west central Illinois, do you think that high temps can cause enough stress to slow the antler growth down? At this point in the growing season, it may not affect them much, if any. It was just something I thought about and hadn't heard anyone touch on before. Thanks. Well, so Joey, this antler growing season has had some things work in its favor and some things not work in its favor. So let's compare 2025 this year to last year, 2024. So last growing season, the winter preceding last growing season, was very, very mild, super mild. This past winter was not, I wouldn't call it a rough winter, but we had some stretches that were way worse than anything we've had for a number of years. And I'll give you an example. I don't think I had touched a snow shovel in at least probably 4 years before last winter. Last winter, there was one day I spent 4 hours on a skid loader moving snow. So we had that event. We had multiple snow events and some really cold stretches that we had not had. So that stressed the deer just a little more than they had the year before. In 24, we had an early spring. Things warmed up early, got off to a great start. This spring, it stayed cool and wet well into May. I mean, when I planted my food plots, when the local farmers planted their crops, was on average about 30 days or a month behind what they typically would. So we had a slower spring to get those bucks off to a slower start this year than last year. Now the summer, I'm going to say the summer this year might have been better because we've got some pretty regular rains this summer. So we've kept that vegetation in a growing state, and it's that new tender growth out on the end of the plant that's the most nutrient dense, and that's what the deer crave. I think we've had probably a better summer than we had last year. Now, to get right to your question, though, you're talking about temperatures. So warmer temperatures, and we got to be careful here because we don't want to vary too far from average. So when I say a wetter year is better than a drier year, yeah, but we don't want way wetter than what average is. We don't want to go to an extreme, and that can be just as bad as the extreme the other direction. So when you have a drought, so we want to be a little bit on the wetter side. We want to be a little bit on the warmer side for antler growth. And yeah, we've had some really warm days and humid days here in the last week or so, and scheduled for a few more days this coming week. So I don't think that we're to the point where we've caused those deer any stress. I would be way more worried if we had those temperatures and it was extremely dry. It was a drought. I think the fact that we've got all the rain, it kind of offsets that extreme heat a little bit. And also, we haven't seen a triple-digit heat yet. There's a lot of summers where we'll hit 100 or 102 or whatever. We have not seen that extreme yet. I think it's the you mentioned the heat index, and I think that's a combination of the temperature plus the humidity, what it feels like. And yeah, it's been extremely uncomfortable, but you know what happens in those warmer conditions is it increases blood flow to those growing antlers. Those antlers are just full, in velvet, are just full of blood vessels. Antler tissue is the fastest growing form of animal tissue there is. They've actually, cancer scientists have studied it because of tumors, are fast growing as well. A tumor is full of blood vessels, and growing antler is as well. And when it gets really warm, those blood vessels dilate or they expand, and it increases the blood flow to those antlers and through those antlers. And that increased blood flow, there's nutrients in that blood that are being deposited in that growing antler. So that's why the warmer temperatures are good for antler growth, because of the increased blood flow to them. But I think this has been a slightly above average year for antler growth. I think the long, cool, wet spring was not ideal, but overall, I think it's average or maybe just slightly above average.
Okay.
Next question comes from Christopher Blair from Woolham, Kentucky. It says, Don and Terry, love the podcast. I've been a listener since the beginning and have learned a lot about mature whitetails, but especially land management. I have recently encountered an interesting situation and don't recall this ever being discussed. Monday morning, a mature doe was killed on the road in front of my property. I went out to check her out and noticed her udder was large and full. I searched for the fawn and couldn't find it. Tuesday at midday, I got a picture of a single fawn by itself. I noticed the fawn spots were already fading. Wednesday and Thursday, I got pics of a large mature doe with two fawns. The fawns were very different. One appeared to be the same fawn I saw on Tuesday. It had faded spots compared to the other fawn and was much larger. My question is, will a doe accept and feed other fawns? Well, Christopher, I can tell you what I learned from the captive deer that I had years ago, and the same thing I've noticed with cattle. And so, most cows, when they have a calf, when that calf is little, they only want to take care of their own calf. As that calf gets older, they are more willing to let other calves nurse on her. I noticed the very same thing with the does that I had in captivity years ago, is that when a doe first had fawns, she was only going to take care of her fawn. She was not going to let every fawn in the pen nurse on her. But there was a lot of times when a fawn or the fawns got older that I would see does being nursed by fawns other than their own. And I suspect in the case of that you've described here, the fawn, the bigger fawn, very well may have been from the doe that got killed. And whether it's allowed to nurse on that doe or not, he's probably just following them around because that's their nature. They're a herd animal. They want to be with other of their species. And it's very likely that the doe that got killed, that her fawn or fawns are with other deer. Whether the other deer does are letting them nurse or not is anybody's guess.
Is a doe at this point old enough to live off of natural browse, or can they get by without their mom nursing, or still need that?
Well, most likely, if the fawn that he described that's bigger and starting to lose its spots, it's got to be at least 8 weeks old. I mean, if it was born towards the end of May, it'd be about 8 weeks old now. That's pushing it, but yeah, I mean, they start nibbling on vegetation very, very early, and they can make it at this point.
Interesting. All right, let's put the last one up here.
This one comes from Chad Kendrick from Colcord, Oklahoma. It says, Dear Don and Terry, thank you for consistently producing great podcasts that teach so much more than just hunting. I have two passions in life, one being deer hunting, the other being owning and raising cattle. I dream to own a tract of land big enough to satisfy both passions one day. Me too, Chad. My question is if you think it is manageable for one farm to suit both passions. If so, should the farm be divided to designated areas for only deer or only cattle and never cross the two? Or possibly a rotating cycle that trades the designated areas every other year? Or would it be best to own two separate properties, with one being solely for the deer, the other solely for the cattle? If you believe one farm can satisfy both passions, how many acres would be needed just for the deer to give high-quality deer health and hunting? Thank you. Well, Chad, I picked your question because you and I got some things in common. I like deer and cows myself, and well, I'll tell you what, to satisfy your passion, that's kind of a loaded question, because I don't have enough land to satisfy my deer passion, or I don't have enough to satisfy my cow passion, and the cows get the short end of the stick around here. I've got 7 cows and a bull at the moment in the calves, and that's really pushing it on the small pasture I got, and I could provide more pasture. In fact, a lot of my deer cover now used to be cattle pasture, but the deer just kind of took over. So I guess how many acres you're going to need, how many cows are you going to want? If you're going to want 100, 200, 500, I don't know, but as far as for the deer side, again, it's going to depend on what your goals are. If you're happy shooting just deer, you could probably get by with 10 acres of cover and shoot deer every year. The higher your goals, the more acres you're going to need. But as far as working them together, you know, the buck I shot Mel is a perfect example where I use the cow pasture as a place for my scent to blow. And Wes Delks has done the same thing on his farm. He bought a farm, no cattle on it, no fences. He actually built a cattle pasture. He doesn't even have cows. He rents it to his neighbor for his neighbor to put cows on. But he did it as a place where there's very low likelihood to be deer, where he can access across that pasture and blow his scent back out into that pasture, and deer are not likely to catch his scent. So I think you could definitely do both on the same property. And Al Foster was telling me about a gentleman that he did an article on several years back. I'm talking way back in probably the 80s or 90s. But this gentleman only hunted with a gun, but he hunted cow pastures. But these cow pastures had to have some thick brush within them. And Al used to hunt a cow pasture, and then when he quit hunting, he turned it over to me, and I got permission to start hunting it. A cow pasture, if you're going to hunt it for deer, needs to have some thick cover. Multiflora rows in a cow pasture is absolutely awesome, I think. There's people out there waging war on multiflora rows. I don't kill any of it. If I'm fortunate enough to have it on my place, I mean, the deer just love it. They'll actually browse it, but it makes great bedding cover. And a lot of times what happens in these cow pastures is you'll have a doe group, a family group of does. Maybe it's only one doe and her fawns, or maybe it's 2 or 3 does and their fawns, but they've just found, good living in that pasture, security, whatever. And maybe there's some big oak trees dropping acorns, whatever it is. They utilize the cow pasture, and those bucks know it. I mean, those bucks smell those does from a mile away. And the gentleman that Al did the article on, he was shooting these deer in the rut. I mean, the mature buck, he wasn't hunting there in October. He was hunting there during the peak of the rut. And the interesting thing was he was shooting a lot of these deer midday. It wasn't, first light, last light type of thing. These bucks had become very educated, I guess, to the typical hunting habits of, hunters going out and hunting the first 3 hours of daylight and the last couple hours of daylight. And these bucks are moving. And this happens everywhere, guys. If the pressure is on, those bucks are not, they know what hunters are typically doing. They're going to be doing something different. And it might mean the time of the day that they move. It might be exactly where they live. And so I think that there is definitely some merit to hunting cattle pastures. I think that during the rut is probably a critical time, or another good time to do it that I found whenever, and I've hunted multiple cattle pastures over the years, is after gun season, because the gun pressure pushes these bucks into places where they're not encountering people or human scent on the ground, and they know when they're in danger. They know, where people are supposed to be and where they're not. But I can think of a couple pastures I used to hunt where the buck activity got better after gun season because the bucks got pushed in there. So yeah, I think you can definitely own a property and satisfy your desire to have cattle and a good deer hunting property. But I can't tell you how many acres you're going to have. Being from Oklahoma as well, I mean, that's just a little bit out of my comfort zone, so it's going to be hard for me to answer that part of your question, but you can definitely do both cattle and deer.
All right. Well, great questions from everybody this week. I am going to go ahead and say that on the Chasing Assurance podcast this week, Emerson Day joined us to talk a little bit about how she enjoys hunting and how the overlap of her career in the music industry and some inspiration of some songs came from experiences in a tree stand. So Harold Monk has the Sunday night prayer time this week. Our friend Harold from Wise Eye already sent me that video. It'll be playing as soon as Don closes out the show. And then just after that, just in case people want to listen to Emerson and kind of a little bit of her story, I'm going to play it at the end of the Sunday night prayer time this week. So we got probably 20 more minutes of show for those who want to stick around and listen to that. And that's all we got for this week, buddy.
I do have a special message just for the listeners of Chasing Giants. I'm going to give you guys a head start on something that I'm going to be talking about on social media here soon. But you guys know that I buy and develop properties in Ohio with a couple of business partners. We've got a 75-acre property. We've owned it for 2 years. It's ready to go. It's ready to hunt. It's got 2 food plots on it, 2 360 blinds. It's got another ladder stand. It's got 2 feeders. Austin Razor has planted the food plots this spring. This place is ready to go. 75 acres. Scioto County, Ohio. If anybody's interested, I'm going to give you guys about a week, the Chasing Giants listeners, to reach out to me before I put it on social media. So I appreciate you guys that stick with Terry and I. And if I can give you a little heads up on things like this, I'm going to do it. So if you're interested, just reach out to me. Otherwise, see you back here next week. God bless. Have a great week, everyone.
Chasing Giants has been brought to you by Osseo Camo. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode of Chasing Giants.
Good morning from southern Louisiana, as we say here in Cajun country. How y'all are? That's just the way. That's a common good morning. How's your family deal? But I want to share a quick story with you. I was eating lunch the other day at a local restaurant. I left Wise Eye here to go get a quick salad, and there was 2 ladies that were discussing life And one of them, they were sitting next to me, and they were talking kind of loud, and when one of them was talking about all the problems with the kids and husbands and cars and houses and all the challenges she had, and she just couldn't handle it that much anymore. And the lady next to her was very sympathetic, and she gave her some great advice. And she told her, basically, God will never give you more than you can handle. Just remember that. Well, you know, guys, I kind of thought about that for a second, and I've read the Bible through several times, and being love to read the Bible. That struck me kind of odd because I don't remember anywhere in the Bible that God says He will not give us more than we can handle. And I didn't want to say anything to the lady next to me, but it really had me thinking, where did this come from? And how did we put this saying together that we hear all the time? I heard it at a funeral not too long ago, that God will not give us more than we can handle. Well, but I couldn't find it biblically. But let me tell you what I did find. In First Corinthians, when Paul was writing to the church there at Corinth, in chapter 10 and 13, this is what he wrote. He wrote, "No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, He will also provide a way out so you can endure it." Let me read that again. I want you to understand what I'm saying here. No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, He will also provide a way out so you can endure it. Isn't that great? Let's put this in context. This verse is not telling us about hardship. It's specifically talking about temptation, not about trials, not about our suffering, illnesses, or loss, or other hardships. But God promises faithfulness in temptations, providing both a limit and what you must face and a way to escape it so you can bear it. And why is this misleading? I mean, this statement this lady told her is so comforting to people. But understand, the Bible speaks of only being tempted, or God sustaining us. It doesn't say about God sustaining us in suffering. It talks to us about being tempted. But nowhere in the Bible does it say He guarantees He'll handle everything life throws at us. It encourages hidden struggles. So if we believe a too much crisis means personal failure, we may suffer in silence rather than seeking help. You know, it's exactly the opposite of what the Bible model tells us, is to carry each other one's burdens. That's in Philippians 4:6. And when we're overwhelmed, people may feel ashamed. God must think I'm spiritually weak. But Scripture teaches us that weakness can be the very place that God's power is made visible. And that's in 2 Corinthians 12:9, is that when we are weak, God is strong. So what does the Bible really say about hardship? And I've got 4 verses here right quick I'm going to show you about God's presence in suffering. King David had a really tough time. But in Psalms 34:18, he says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and He saves who are crushed in spirit." Boy, isn't that just a great verse? How about Philippians 4:13? "I can do all things through Him who gives me the strength." And how about 1 Peter 5:7? "Cast all your anxiety on Him, because He cares for you." And how about the greatest one, Galatians 6:2? And this is what our family really goes around. "Carry each other burdens, and in this way you feel the law of Christ." So I just want to leave that with you this morning, and I wanted to tell you what I've learned, and I wrote this down actually, and it's on my desk here. Is a better way of saying God won't give me more than you can handle. So if I ever hear that again, I have some way to answer that question. And here's my answer to that. God promises to be with you in every hardship and to sustain you and to provide you the strength and support you need, even when it feels like more than you can bear. I'm going to say this one more time. God promises to be with you in every hardship, to sustain you and to provide the strength and support you need, even when it feels more than you can bear. Thank you for listening to this, and I pray that you have a great day. And let's pray and close, please. Father, thank you for the day. Gosh, just thank you for your blessings and your promise that you will be stepping with us every step of our life, that you're stepping right beside us, that you will provide us when temptation comes our way, that you will provide us a way out. Your promises are true. When our hardship comes, Father, we know that you want to provide and keep us safe, that when hardships come our way, Father, our only hope is to lean on you because you deserve the glory. And so we just pray that anyone here that is going through some hardship, Father, that they learn to lean on you. You will direct their paths. And pray, Father, that you will forgive us when we fail you. Thank you for providing the Lamb, Father, that covers our sin, and that it's a very simple grace, Father, that you let us have that access to you through grace of the death of your Son, Jesus Christ. Thank you, God, Father, again, for all the blessings and all the friendships that we have. We ask in Christ's name. Amen. Thank you, and see you next time. Thanks.
Okay.
All right, we're back with Emerson Day. She came on the Chasing Assurance podcast for the Lester's Feet segment to talk about this wonderful song, Middle of a Miracle, that we've been using as part of our mission and ministry at Lester's Feet Foundation. But while we have her, I'm going to take more of her time that she doesn't have. She's got a bunch of other stuff she needs to be working on, but I'm going to steal it and just talk a little bit more. And I think it's kind of funny to go back to how we first connected, which was you were actually, maybe you should tell a story. I don't even remember what podcast you were on.
Yeah,
And
I was on a podcast called The Christian Music Guys, and they were interviewing me, for Christian music side of things, and they did like a rapid fire questionnaire type thing. And they asked me, what's your favorite podcast? And I just kind of paused, and I'm like, well, this is probably one you've never gotten before. And it was an honest answer. And what's so funny is the guy that was interviewing me off screen was like, man, this sounds really good. Like, I'm looking this up. He's like overlooking it up. He's like, that sounds like something I would like. So we
who would have thought that you would have been, when you get put on the spot, that you said your favorite podcast was Chasing Giants of all things.
Yep.
I feel like I need to apologize to you that we haven't produced better content to this point. It's usually just Don and I saying inappropriate, politically incorrect stuff in between a bunch of deer hunting nonsense. But yeah, so somehow I think you sent both Don and I. We'd never connected before.
Yeah.
And you sent this and say, hey, you'll get a kick out of this. And we both started laughing, but I messaged you back, and this was probably, I don't know, months ago, but I was on an airplane, and with all of the businesses and stuff that I have, I was just in one of those funks where I'm like, is all of this really worth it?
Mm-hmm.
I could go back to the corporate world and toast, and
Yep.
is it really worth it, trying to navigate all these different things. And I was and how the YouTube recommends new music, and your song God Ain't Finished Yet pops on, and that was the first time that I'd ever heard your music, which was like a week or two before you reached out to us. So I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Why do I even get surprised at this stuff anymore?
Right. That's crazy.
Yeah, so you have, although you're a little careful about what you say, you are an avid hunter and fisherman. I saw you post a little game that you played, I believe, with your dad, that they had to catch a fish before the song was over or something like that.
Yeah, it was my dad and my husband and I, we did a little challenge, and I try to weave that in as much as I can on my socials because I am an avid hunter and just outdoors person in general, and so I love to find ways to incorporate that into the music side of what I do. And sad enough to say, I am losing in that challenge repeatedly. Dad won, Bryce won. I'm not doing too well for myself on that.
Well, it looked like to me you were the one that was turning the song on. So it looked like just from us watching it that they had like about a 4-second head start.
You're right. You're right.
So maybe you need to have them start the song while you're casting your first line, and maybe just that's the way it looks from our side anyway. Well, Emerson, I guess your family was always around the outdoors. I believe you're from Maryland originally, which isn't too far away from where all of my family's at. But how do you? I guess I'm real curious how this compares because Don and I spend a lot of time, whether we're doing habitat work or setting in a tree stand, when we're actually looking at details about the complexity of creation.
Mm-hmm.
And how God intertwined everything inside of an ecosystem for how micro and macro things work together to make things flourish, but then just the simplicity of salvation. You're upgrading, you got this complexity. He could have made salvation the most complex thing that made it work like a deer's physiological anatomy, but he didn't. He made it very simple. With your upbringing in the outdoors, did that give you any appreciation or different perspective of creation that you try to put into your style of music?
Oh yeah. I think, and I've always said this too, like for me, being in the outdoors is where I feel closest to God, where I have some of my best conversations with God. And I think it starts because as a little girl, that's where we spent a majority of our time, was just being outside in the great outdoors. And I was so lucky that I grew up with two parents that loved the Lord and weren't afraid to talk about, their faith in our household. And, going hunting with my dad, it was never just about going out and hunting. It was always, he was always tying in God and his faith and creation and all of it. It's like anytime you're sitting there and you look at a sunset or you watch a sunrise and it's coming up, it's like, wow, like, look how God painted that sky. Like there were always pieces that were weaved in. And so I was so lucky that I had, two parents that love the Lord. And then because of my dad's love for the outdoors, it was always hand in hand. And I think that's why I've grown to love it so much. And it's a huge part of not only just who I am, but it's a huge part of my relationship with God as well. Because to your point, noticing creation is noticing the hand of the Father and looking at what was created and how he intertwined everything and created everything to work the way that it does. It's like if he put so much time and energy and thought into that, like how much more did he put into us? Does he love us? And that always amazes me every time.
Well, I think you've really, I've seen just a huge uptick in a lot of your music, and even K-Love had you in the studio not too long ago. I think you got to present an award at the big K-Love Awards show. So, I mean, you haven't been doing this that awful long, but I know you've been doing it a long time. But here recently, I know a lot of traction's been made towards your career. But I think in a very short period of time, people are going to turn and look at you as really a trailblazer in contemporary Christian music, because it's gone through all these cycles. You go back to when old guys like me were going I went to Bible college my freshman year, and DC Talk was like just hitting the mainstream, and that was like old taboo for half of the Christian, folk out there, that these guys are, rapping and dancing around like they are. And then you go through these evolutions when then Chris Tomlin completely changed, worship music for everybody. But now we have the Southern rock girl from Maryland that is just the style of music. Where did this come from? What was the inspiration? Is because I think it's going to completely just really inspire so many people that love that genre of music to use it for the kingdom.
Yeah. Well, thank you, first of all, for saying that. Thank you. And, I always tell people I'm this funny blend of, growing up, our church was very traditional. It was always hymns for the most part. And then, mom was a huge country fan. And so it was country on her radio, on the way home from school. But on the way to school, dad dropped us off and it was classic rock, 80s hair band, Southern rock. So I'm like this melting pot of, a little bit of country, a little bit of rock and roll, but we love Jesus, and that's kind of me in a nutshell musically. But yeah, it's funny how all those things inspire, the music that I write today.
Yeah. Well, I think there's this term in the film industry of those who shook the hand of Sinatra, right? Have you heard that?
I think I
Have you heard about this? Yeah, it's like, very few people got to shake the hand of Sinatra. Recently, a new song came out where you had a duet with a special person that I'm a big fan of, who did a duet with Dolly. So now you are in this segment of you've done a duet with the same person that did a duet with Dolly. Talk about this experience, because that was huge.
Oh, it was huge and such a God thing, because as a new artist, it's very rare, I think, to see somebody like a Zach Williams, who's been doing this for years and is at, the top of our industry, to say yes to something like that. And, when my label came to me and they were like, hey, I think it'd be great to get a feature on this. Like, who do you want? I'm like, hey, this is a little bit of a long shot, but could we ask Zach Williams? And they're like, hey, like worst you can say is no, right? Like we'll ask him. So they reached out and it was a yes almost right away. And I was just shocked. I mean, because I was fully expecting it, to be a no. So the fact that he said yes was, the first hurdle. And then the second hurdle was finding the time just to get into the studio, because he is so busy and touring 3 times as much as I was. Found a time to get in the studio. It was like, hey, we've got a like 4 to 6 hour block between things. Like, let's do it then. So got to go in the studio and obviously meet him and hang out for a little bit and cut this song. But for me, it was very full circle, because when I first, got into music and was starting to transition into Christian music, I had this moment of like, God, I don't know where you want me to fit in this industry, because I don't sound like any of the other female artists in Christian music. And I'm just having a hard time seeing how this is going to work out. And then Zach Williams broke. It was right around, I guess it'd be 2016, 2017, something like that, with Chainbreaker, with that country, a little bit of rock, Christian sound. And I was like, okay, like I love that. And if it can sound like that, I'm in, And so that was a huge inspiration to me pursuing Christian music. So to come back all these years later and have him be a feature on my song, it was just like, wow, only God could do that, So cool.
Well, congratulations. You are now in the same category as Dolly Parton. You should make you a t-shirt that says that. The hand that shook Sinatra and those who sang with people who sang with Dolly. That's the 2 entertainment milestones that everybody has to strive for if you're going to pursue the industry. Emerson, that's funny. Talk a little bit I don't want to keep you too long, but talk a little bit about where you kind of see, I know you have a tour schedule coming out that you're going to be hitting it pretty hard this fall, but it's a balance of furthering the kingdom, providing for your family, and doing what you love. If you could look at this, and I'm sorry if this is a hard question, but if you could really look at what this does as it evolves over the next couple years, where does Emerson Day want to be in this industry, doing what she loves and providing for her family and furthering the kingdom as it goes? Because to me, having that kind of scheduled during hunting season is a no-fly zone. I mean, I'm not.
Man, it's funny. It's so true. When I first got into this and they were talking just, what typical year looks like. And they said, yeah, most of the heavy touring is in the fall, October through November, like pretty much through to Thanksgiving and then beyond. I was kind of like, oh, I didn't realize that. You have that moment of like, And even, some of my friends that have tried to have fall weddings, I'm like, please, please. I'm like, the spring is nice. The summer's beautiful, like we don't need a November wedding. Like it's kind of a running joke, but yeah, for me, I'm very competitive. I played lacrosse my entire life. I played lacrosse in college. And so I have a very deep competitive nature. And so even when I started pursuing music, it's like, I want to take it as far as I can take it. And younger me, I think a lot of that was selfish. A lot of it was, that's just how I operated. Like even on the lacrosse field, it's like, okay, well, I don't want to just be the best on the team. I want to be the best in the region. And then, okay, I don't want to be the best in the region. Now I want to be the best in the state. Like, I just kind of have always had this mentality. And I do think God gave me that so I would be able to get through how competitive this industry is. But the more that I've gotten into it, the more that I've realized He can only take it as far as I can let it go. So if I can let it go and fully surrender it, that's when He can take it as far as it needs to go. And it's taken me a good 8 years and today and the next day and every day after that to remind myself of that. But I think a lot of times when we want something so bad for ourselves, a dream that we have, even if it's God-given, there have been times when I've just held on to it so tight that I squished what God was trying to do with it. And so I showed up on the scene as a new artist and I'm like, I want to play arenas. Like I want to be in an arena and everyone is praising the Lord. Like how amazing would that be? And every year, obviously, I'm still working as hard as I can, to be the best that I could be. But I had to get to a place where it's, God, I don't care if it's an arena. I don't care if it's one person. I don't care if it's somebody's living room. Like I'm going to go where you send me. And I'm going to do the best of my ability with what you've given me. And I've had so much peace with that because the other part that you mentioned is, providing for your family. This is what I do as a ministry and as my calling, but it is also what I do, as you mentioned, to feed my family. And so where's the line and the balance with that? And as soon as I let it go and was like, you are in control and I will go where you send me and I don't care about it anymore, all of a sudden, I stopped worrying about the financial piece of it. It's like God just gave me a piece about it where I didn't have to worry. And that, I think, means almost more than the alternative, And I always say, too, if I would have gotten what I wanted when I started music 8 years ago, I would have ruined it. Because I spiritually was not mature enough to handle. I'm like, yeah, God, let's go do music. Like, I'll be the next Carrie Underwood. Like, great plan, I would have ruined it. And so it took a lot of spiritual growth on my end to, to get to that place of where I'm at today. But, and learning to sacrifice. As you mentioned, like hunting is one of my other great passions in life, right up there with music. And, I just had to understand that this calling and what I'm doing with music is, I can reach people more on that platform and what I'm doing. And this can be a part of what makes me me. And I love it. And it is a gift and a passion, but I have to be willing to sacrifice that in order to be on whatever stage He's called me to. So.
Well, I'm going to text you some dates probably within the next, I would guess 2 months when they get released. You and your husband can come for the annual spring turkey shoot on my farm and go kill some turkeys with Joe and Al, and we'll let you sit in the turkey blind with Al for a little bit, and that'll be the highlight of your hunting career. I can assure you of that. But yeah, so if your fall is booked up, or we can just go after the first of the year, we can all just do like Joe Miles and go down to Mexico where it's still hunting season down there, and then we'll go down there. So we might be able to figure something out, but we'll make sure in your downtime you're taken care of with opportunities in the hunting side of the business. So Emerson, you're going to be touring a lot this fall, and without going into a crazy list of everything, just kind of give a brief overview of kind of what your plans are for tours this fall, where people can go to find out what dates and what locations we're going to be at.
Yeah, so we're going out with Micah Tyler this fall on the God Did It tour. It's going to be October, I think 9th is the first date, and it runs all the way through the 23rd of November. So a lot of dates where, people can come out. All East Coast, down south a little bit, and then all the way as far west, I think, as Texas. So all of those are on my website and socials, which is emersondaymusic.com. So yeah, would love to see.
You now have 3 events within an hour and a half of us, so you'll be able to see our family and the board of Lester's Feet, and probably some Lester's Feet families throughout this year as we bring them to get to meet you this fall. So we appreciate. All right. Well, again, thank you for joining us. We want to be respectful of your time, but you don't know how much it means to us, as sometimes we need a little bit of a pick-me-up too. And just your encouragement from your perspective, sending us that note saying thanks for what you guys do. Thanks for you doing the Sunday night prayer time at the end of the Chasing Giants podcast, all of that kind of stuff, which I'll leave everybody with. We got a new person that's going to be on the rotation of Sunday night prayer time. What do you think about that?
I'm excited. I'm really excited. And let me just say this too. I can't tell you how many times that has been a lifeline for me, because I loved listening to the podcast throughout the week, and having that at the end when I felt like I couldn't always listen to a whole sermon at times or whatever, like just having that at the end was such a lifeline for me at times. It was so encouraging. And I just really appreciated that you guys took the time to do that in a world and in an industry where most people wouldn't. And so just, again, want to commend you guys for that. And just me personally, how much it meant. I'm excited to be a part of that.
Well, Don and I have a saying that if you don't like it, we'll refund your money. You can't use that in your business because you would actually have to refund money. We don't have to do that. So...
This is true.
So we have a leg up on you, but all right, well, we'll let you go. Thank you so much. We'll be in touch with more news from Lester's Feet in the segments as we move forward using Emerson's wonderful song, Middle of a Miracle. And also make sure you're following her on all of her socials, and more releases and singles coming soon, I hope, right?
Yes.
All right. Take care, everyone. Thanks for joining us this week. God bless.